All right, hi, I'm Brian Walters, again with some video about parental alienation, or parental alienation syndrome as it's sometimes called. It's one of the most devastating things I've seen happen in cases that I've been involved in, and it's one of the things we get a lot of questions about. So first off, we're lawyers, so we always say define your terms. So what is parent alienation? It's when one parent is trying to take away the love that a child naturally has for the other parents. They're alienating them. They're taking away from them what is normally theirs and what is good and normal for a child. I think it's a question often of degree. It's not unusual when parents split up, either in a divorce or otherwise, that there's animosity between them or disappointment or sadness. And it's difficult, I think, to completely hide that from your children. Children are smarter than we give them credit for a lot of times, and a lot more perceptive than we sometimes think. And so they can tell mommy doesn't like daddy, daddy doesn't like mommy, or daddy has a new woman in his life, or something like that. They can tell that, and that can be damaging for a child depending on the circumstances. And it's not unusual for a parent to be less supportive of a parent that they're splitting up with than before. When they're happily married couple or they're together, generally the parents are going to try to support each other. And when they're not, it's easier to say, when a child complains about the other parent, to not necessarily correct them and say, oh, your daddy loves you. You might just say nothing. Well, that's not a direct parent alienation, but it's indirect, and it has some of the same effect. A lot of that goes on when people split up, and generally over time, those type of hard feelings between the people that are splitting up lessen. One or both of them kind of get over it and move on with their lives most of the time, but not always. And for some people, they are really determined to use their child as a weapon. They probably wouldn't say that or admit that, but that's ultimately what happens. And for most parents, the most important thing in their life is their children, and the love that their children have for them, and their love for their children. And so if you're pissed off at your spouse because they did you wrong in the marriage, there's only so much us lawyers can do to the other side. At some point, they're going to be divorced, and so the way you can continue to get back at them, if that's what you want to do, is through the kids. And nothing hurts a parent more than to have that happen to them, to have their children not show love for them or affection. The most extreme examples are when somebody just directly tells a child, your dad is terrible, he's horrible, he doesn't love you, or a parent doesn't let them see the other parent, whether that's for a short time or a long time. Those are the most extreme examples of it, and they're relatively rare, but not as rare as they should be. And they're often dressed up as other things. For example, we had a case a while ago where the dad was telling the children that their mother was a whore. She had an affair during the marriage, and he was really pissed about it. And his defense to that, when asked about it, he admitted it. He said, it's the truth, and I'm truthful with my children. I don't think many of us are going to think that's really a good way to approach being a co-parent with somebody you're divorcing, but in his mind, he had justified that. I think he really believed that, because humans are really good at justifying things. That's one of the things that separates us from the other animals out there, is we need to justify our behaviors. And so people are really good at that, of justifying really bad things. The other one is denying access to the other parent. And that can be at the beginning of a case when there's not a court order in place, where you aren't compelled to let the other parent have a weekend with them, for example, and you just hold them back for no particular good reason, or for a reason that you make up, or minimizing their time. Just, hey, they've got something come up at work, or they can't make the visitation time, they're going to be an hour too late, and that parent says, well, you just lost your whole weekend because you're not here right at 6 o'clock. That's the kind of behavior that just isn't going to be in the best interest of a child most of the time. Now, if there's a legitimate safety concern, if you've got a parent on the other side who's got a serious substance abuse problem, or mental health problem, or violence issues, or has got inappropriate things going on at their house, or bad people at their house, sure, you need to protect your child. And that's usually the way those things are dressed up. Even when it's alienation, it's usually dressed up as something else. And that's what makes these things difficult. I will say that the courts are real serious about that, and if they feel like there is a parent that's alienating the children from the other parent, they will come down hard on that parent who's doing that. They will act in a way to protect those kids from being in that situation. The most extreme example is to not allow the children to see the parent who's alienating, who's causing these problems. But that has its own set of problems, right? Because then a child is alienated from one of the parents because they're not seeing them. So another option is a little less severe is supervising, where there has to be some other neutral, trusted third person who's there to protect the kids from being exposed to that kind of alienating behavior. That's got its own set of problems. That's expensive, that's complicated. Who wants to be a supervisor? What is a supervisor supposed to actually do? All of those things are problems that occur with supervision. So and I guess the other option is to switch custody over from the alienating parent to the non-alienating parent, but that also doesn't completely solve the problem because the kids are still seeing the alienating parent at that point. So these are hard decisions. I'm often struck by when I'm in the middle of these cases that I think I have the easy job just arguing for a client, where the judge has the hard job, which is to try to figure out what to do for these children, where it's often a situation where no matter what happens, the children are going to be punished in some way. But proving that the other parent is alienating the children from you, if that's what's occurring in your life, is a difficult thing. As I said, smart people can usually make up excuses or rationalizations or justifications for just about anything. And so you've got to gather the evidence and convince a judge, give a convincing narrative or a story that the alienation is going on. It helps if you've got older kids who are able to talk about this to a therapist or even directly to the judge about what's going on. But of course, even in those cases, sometimes the children are terrified of the alienating parent, and then they don't want to tell on them, so to speak. So these are tricky, difficult cases, but they can be won. And if you can convince a judge or a jury that the other parent is alienating you from your children, I think each and every one of those judges or juries will come down very hard on the alienating parent and try to protect your kids. So those are your options. That's a basic look at parent alienation. We can talk a lot more about it. We've got a ton of writing on our website about this very important issue, and we're always happy to try to answer your questions. If you've got any, just drop us a line or chat us or give us a call, and we'll see what we can do to help. Appreciate it. Bye.